global leader of eco-friendly future materials. Green tomorrow with POSCO.
Coming up on Arirang News. South Korea is raising electricity and gas prices by more than 5% starting tomorrow. The government also announces a one-year grace period for low-income families. South Korea's tech exports in April saw a 10th consecutive month of on-year drops, mainly because of semiconductors and displays. Turkey's neck-and-neck presidential election is likely heading for a runoff, as current President Erdogan nor his main rival, Kılıçdaroğlu, appear to have secured the majority of votes needed to win. And amid the war in Ukraine, the election is also being closely watched in Europe and Russia, as it'll determine NATO membership. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in South Korea. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. Starting tomorrow, electricity and gas rates in the country will be hiked by more than 5%. This is part of the efforts to reduce the snowballing losses of the related state-run utility companies. In line with that, the government also came up with support measures for households in the lower income bracket. Our political correspondent, Han-Sung-woo, leads us off.
Starting Tuesday, South Korea's electricity rates will go up by 8 won, or about 1 cent, per kilowatt hour. It's estimated to cost a 4-member household around 3,000 won, or $2.20 more on average per month. Gas bills for cooking and heating will rise as well, by 1.04 won per megajoule. That will cost a 4-member household about 4,400 won, or $3.30 more each month. Both rates are increasing by 5.3% from current levels. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, which had discussions with the ruling People Power Party earlier on Monday morning, said that the hike was inevitable.
An extra hike is unavoidable if we are to procure a sustainable supply of energy and normalize management at the Korea Electric Power Corporation and the Korea Gas Corporation.
The hikes for the April to June period come amid high global energy costs and mounting losses for the state utility companies. In the first quarter of 2023, the government had increased the electricity rates by 13.1 won per kilowatt hour, but had frozen gas prices to keep heating bills down during the winter. Meanwhile, to ease the burden of higher bills on energy-vulnerable households, the government and the People Power Party have agreed to implement a set of support measures. Those include exemptions from the rate hikes for a year for socially vulnerable households falling within the low-income bracket, as well as an expansion of energy vouchers and an expansion of the so-called energy cashback policy that gives rate discounts to households that save electricity. Han-Sung-woo, Arirang News.
South Korea has officially resumed the construction of nuclear power plants Shin-Hanul No. 3 and 4, marking the country's return to nuclear energy. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said on Monday that a ceremony was held to mark the start of building their core parts. It added that under the Yoon administration's policy to expand the nuclear power generation, the president's vow to resume construction of them has been kept. Work on the two 1,400-megawatt nuclear power plants in the coastal county of Ulsan had been halted in 2017 under the previous administration's nuclear phase-out policy. South Korea's tech exports continues to shrink last month for a 10th consecutive month, mainly due to semiconductors and displays. But the industry as a whole noted a trade surplus. Moon Hae-ryun has details.
South Korea's ICT industry recorded a trade surplus of $2.33 billion despite exports falling across all major sectors and trading partners. According to data released on Monday by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, the total value of tech exports in April came to around $12.8 billion, nearly 36% lower than the same month last year. The ministry attributed this to April last year recording the highest value of ICT exports for the month of April, while the ICT industry this year has seen lower demand due to the downturn of the global economy. By sector, there was a 40.5% decline on-year in the total export value of semiconductors, marking the 9th consecutive month in which chip exports have fallen on-year. The continued decline comes on the back of falling prices for memory chips such as DRAM, which have seen price drops for 10 months in a row due to lack of demand, and the outlook for chip exports remains grim.
The slump in the semiconductor industry is expected to continue for some time until the global economy recovers. As a result, this slump in chip exports is likely to continue in the second half of the year too.
Exports for displays such as OLED screens used in phones fell by 30.5% on-year, and exports of mobile phones, computers and telecommunication devices also fell on-year. By country, China is the destination for 40% of South Korea's ICT exports, but this year tech exports to China have fallen by nearly 40% on-year. There's been a steady decline in tech exports to China on-year since June last year. Outbound shipments to the United States also fell by more than 40%, while exports to Vietnam, the European Union and Japan have all dropped by more than 25% on-year. South Korea's ICT trade balance has generally recorded a surplus, but ICT imports have been rising over the past few years. April saw a more than 22% on-year rise in imports from India, but there was a sharp decline in imports from the United Arab Emirates. 문혜련, Arirang News.
On the diplomatic front, President Yoon has a busy agenda this week as he seeks to bolster economic security with his global partners amid geopolitical uncertainty. He is to sit down with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts for a three-way talks this weekend. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young with more.
President Yoon will hold a trilateral meeting with his Japanese and US counterparts this weekend on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Hiroshima. Yoon's office has confirmed that the president will head to Hiroshima on Friday and attend an expanded session of G7 member countries, plus 8 guest nations including South Korea. He will share South Korea's position on the key topics of food security, energy supplies amid the Ukraine war, climate change, and ways to bridge the gap between the G7 and the global South. Invited by Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, Yoon's attendance marks a further step to improve bilateral ties, as the two neighbouring countries aim to end their trade and diplomatic disputes that worsened in 2019. During Yoon's three-day visit, the two leaders will make an unprecedented joint visit to a memorial honouring Korean victims of the atomic bomb that devastated Hiroshima in 1945. To boost joint efforts with the US to address North Korea's nuclear threat and cooperate on strategic areas, Yoon and Kishida will also meet with Joe Biden. While there won't be a joint declaration, the three-way summit will be a meaningful follow-up to their previous dialogue in Cambodia last November, according to Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho.
Building on President Yoon's US state visit to mark the 70th year of the South Korea-US alliance and the resumption of shuttle diplomacy between Korea and Japan, we will further map out our role and contribution in multilateral diplomacy, such as at the G7 in Hiroshima.
Kim says Yoon is likely to hold bilateral meetings with other world leaders while he's in Hiroshima as part of his week-long streak of diplomacy that begins before he heads to the G7 meeting. This Wednesday, President Yoon will hold a bilateral meeting in Seoul with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau upon the 60th anniversary of South Korea-Canada relations. The summit will be followed by a joint press conference and an official banquet. Another key bilateral is scheduled for Sunday. As soon as Yoon returns from Hiroshima, he will meet with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who also heads to Seoul after the G7 meeting. The next day, Yoon will sit down with European Council President Charles Michel and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to discuss how to further their 60 years of bilateral relations, focusing on digital partnership and the green transition. As Yoon begins his second year in office, Kim Tae-ho said Seoul will focus on maximising South Korea's security and economic interests and pursue pragmatic diplomacy while strengthening global solidarity on the principle of freedom. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
President Yoon has requested business leaders from South Korea and Japan to speed up the expanding of exchanges as the two countries are making progress in recovering the once frayed relationship. This came on Monday afternoon as President Yoon invited Japanese business people in Seoul for a conference with South Korean businesses. Yoon said the cooperation can establish a steady supply chain in batteries, chips, and EVs. He also requested efforts to boost exchanges among the younger generations, especially through the recently created Future Partnership Fund. According to the top office, Mitsubishi Corporation Chairman Mikio Sasaki, who also chairs the South Korea-Japan Economic Association, showed his gratitude for the efforts made to restoring the bilateral relationship. He also said expanding internship programs will lead to Japanese firms helping with exchanges among the younger generations. The family members of a South Korean victim of Japanese wartime forced labor have accepted the Korean government's compensation plan and have withdrawn their request for a court order to seize, liquidate, and sell shares of a Japanese company's assets. The family of the late victim, Yoon submitted a withdrawal letter to the Supreme Court and District Court late last month to cancel their action against Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal. They reportedly decided to accept the government's compensation, which was announced back in March, where Korean companies will pay into a public fund for victims. Yeol was one of the plaintiffs who filed a lawsuit against the company in 2005. Over in Türkiye, it's President Erdogan's two-decade grip on power at crossroads. Türkiye is now headed for a runoff as neither candidate secured the 50% threshold. Eyes are on this critical election that's likely to decide the fate of the NATO member country amid a complicated geopolitical landscape. Shin-Sebyuk reports.
Turkey's presidential election is heading for a runoff. This came as the two candidates, current President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his opposition rival Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, failed to clear the 50% threshold. Based on over 99% of the votes counted, according to the state-run Anadolu news agency, Erdogan has won some 49% of the vote, while Kılıçdaroğlu is on just under 45%. The latest vote was deemed the most pivotal election in the country's modern history, as this was to decide if Erdogan could extend his 20-year rule. From 2003 to 2014, he served as prime minister before becoming president in 2014. However, he has lost support as the country is grappling with severe inflation that's currently at nearly 45%, and as his government faces criticism for its slow response to the devastating quake that killed more than 50,000 people in February. His rival, Kılıçdaroğlu, is an economist and a politician representing an election coalition of 6 opposition parties. During his campaign, he has emphasized messages of freedom and democracy. This vote marks the first time that the country's fractious opposition has joined together to support a single candidate to face off against Erdogan. Now eyes are on the fate of a vital NATO ally and regional power broker at a time of growing geopolitical uncertainties around the world, with the Ukraine war having no end in sight. The upcoming vote will also determine whether Türkiye will remain under Erdogan's authoritarian control or resumes the more democratic path under a secular social democrat politician. Its fate will be decided on May 28th. Shin-Sebyuk, Arirang News.
South Korea has been grappling with cancer as the country's leading cause of death for decades. But there's a new weapon in the fight against this disease: heavy ion therapy. Our Song Yujin took a look into the country's very first heavy ion therapy center to see how it's going.
Cancer has been the #1 cause of death in South Korea every year since 1983. Doctors and scientists continue to work hard to develop more effective treatments, such as heavy ion therapy. Severance Hospital in Seoul is the first in Korea to use a heavy ion therapy device. So what exactly is heavy ion therapy?
It's a type of radiation treatment. Simply put, we accelerate carbon ions, a type of heavy ion, make them into beams, and project the beams onto cancer cells to get rid of them.
Carbon ions are heavier than protons or electrons used in conventional radiation therapy. This means they are more powerful and destructive to cancer cells. That's why experts say heavy ion therapy is 2 to 3 times more effective. The therapy center is divided into 2 sections. First, the accelerator. The device changes carbon gas into ions and accelerates them to up to 70% the speed of light, creating energy beams. The beams are then sent through these pipes to the therapy rooms next door. So patients lie down inside this 9-meter-long gantry, and the device projects accelerated carbon ion beams at the cancer cells to destroy them. Severance Hospital is the world's first to have 2 of these rotating gantries. Patients don't have to worry about moving around during treatment, which takes less than 30 minutes, as the gantries can shoot carbon ion beams from any angle. The center also has a device that projects the beams from above. The Heavy Ion Therapy Center opened in late April. Right now, the therapy is only available for prostate cancer patients, but the center plans to expand its treatment options soon.
We are hoping to use this therapy on other types of cancer that are resistant to traditional treatments, like liver, bone, and melanoma. We believe heavy ion therapy could be a game changer.
South Korea is now the 7th country in the world to possess a heavy ion therapy device. The battle against cancer is ongoing, but with this kind of cutting-edge technology, humanity is taking a step closer to victory. 송유진, Arirang News.
Korean ginseng and red ginseng have been known for their medical benefits for boosting immunity and physical strength. And now a team of local researchers have discovered another benefit. Oil extracted from red ginseng is shown to alleviate prostatic hyperplasia. Yoon reports.
Korean ginseng has been known to have numerous saponins as active ingredients. Its effect of alleviating physical fatigue and boosting energy has given it medicinal value. When the ginseng is steamed, it turns red, which is how it got its name. And in the process, changes occur in the molecular structure of its ginsenoside, which includes the natural steroid glycosides and saponins. This not only changes the benefits of the ginseng, but also extends its storage life. But now local researchers have found another benefit of red ginseng that already has many health-boosting effects. A research team extracted oil from red ginseng, and the results from animal testing showed that this oil alleviates prostatic hyperplasia. Lab rats that developed an enlarged prostate weighed roughly 50% more than a normal rat. But after 8 weeks of administering the red ginseng oil, the weight difference of the rats dropped to 20%. More than just the weight, a specific antigen that confirms prostatic hyperplasia fell to normal levels for these rats after being given the red ginseng oil.
The reduction in prostate weight and blood PSA levels proves its efficacy on prostatic hyperplasia.
In 2021, there were roughly 1,350,000 patients diagnosed with an enlarged prostate, and more than 90% were over the age of 50. But the diagnosis is growing among younger age groups due to recent lifestyles of high levels of stress, decreased activity levels, and a more westernized diet. 이은진, Arirang News.
K-pop sensation BTS is topping charts worldwide with its new digital single, The Planet. According to the group's agency, Big Hit Music, the song claimed the #1 spot on several charts, including the iTunes Top Songs chart in 67 countries and the Japanese Oricon Singles chart. The Planet is the first song featuring the group's full lineup in nearly a year since the release of Yet to Come last June. Seoul has won this year's International Forum Design Award. Now, it's the second year in a row that the Korean capital city has been awarded this honor, and this time it's for Seoul's unique Seoul Drop modular public furniture system, which is part of the city's fun design project for public spaces. The water droplet-shaped seating system consists of 5 modules and is currently on display in Songyeon Square in central Seoul. Come next month, the seating will be set up at parks along the Hangang River. In 2022, Seoul brought home the same award for the cloud that is its public shades. Much to anticipate this year in Korea's Hadong-gun County in the south for tea lovers. As a follow-up to our first story from Hadong last week, our Choi Soo-young now tells us all about the Expo from tea farms to unique tea cultures.
The aroma of fresh tea washes over visitors at the 2023 World Tea Expo Hadong. The expo is running until June 3rd at Hadong Wild Tea Museum in Hadong-gun County in Gyeongsang-namdo Province. This year's Tea Expo, which was postponed for last year due to COVID-19, is organized around several experience zones. Visitors can taste a variety of teas at the spacious plaza in front of the Wild Tea Museum. Hadong tea is especially famous for ujeon, the highest grade tea made from the youngest leaves harvested in early April. It's a great opportunity to wash away your tiredness with a smooth and fragrant cup of tea. The Global Tea Experience Zone is also not to be missed. Visitors can enjoy the tea etiquette of various countries, including Korea's traditional tea ceremony.
As well as experiencing this Korean tea culture, visitors to the expo also have the chance to compare it to tea culture from Japan, China, Türkiye, and England.
Visitors can compare differences among East Asia's tea cultures, such as how in Japan, green tea leaves are ground up as matcha powder and make soft bubbles that are easy to drink.
I came to the Tea Expo because I have always been interested in tea culture. It's a chance for me to experience various countries' tea culture so I can broaden my knowledge.
In Türkiye, they produce the tea from the same type of tea tree as in Hadong, but the way it is cultivated is different because they usually remove the tea leaves with scissors, not their hands. And they drink tea with lemon and lumps of sugar. You can also directly experience how Hadong tea is produced. The traditional method, which has been passed down for over 1,000 years, involves hand-mixing tea leaves from a heated large pot.
I tried this tea-making experience last year and this year, but unlike last year, it was new this time, so it was fun, but a little scary because it was hot. Anyways, I still enjoyed it.
Hadong World Tea Expo is hoping to welcome more visitors from all over the world. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News, Hadong.
South Korean star golfer Go Jin-young on Sunday won her 15th career LPGA title in a playoff in New Jersey, winning the Cognizant Founders Cup. Go on Monday defeated Minji Lee of Australia, starting the final round 4 strokes behind Lee, but birded the 18th hole to catch her at 13 under 275 and set up the playoff. Go did not have a bogey, but made her par after Lee 3-putted for a bogey on the 18th green in the sudden death playoff, posting a 5 under 67 in the final round. She's the first 3-time champion of this tournament, following wins in 2019 and 2021.
Much of South Korea will see hotter conditions tomorrow. For Seoul, highs will be topping out at 30 degrees, which is about 7 degrees higher than the seasonal average. Other regions, such as Gangneung and Daegu, will see more sweltering conditions. Being exposed to unseasonable heat could lead to dehydration, so try to stay indoors and drink plenty of water. Along with intense heat, strong UV rays are expected for much of South Korea. The UV ray index will be standing in the very high range nationwide. The peak hours for sun exposure are in between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. UV rays for the afternoon will be intense until this Wednesday. Make sure to wear plenty of sunblock. And and sunny spells will dominate nationwide. Seoul and Gwangju will be starting off at 17 degrees. As for the daily highs, Seoul and Chuncheon will be reaching 30, Gwangju 31, Daegu and Gyeongju will be sweltering at 33 degrees. In between Thursday and Friday, Jeju Island will see showers. That's all for now, and to the weather conditions around the world.
That's all for this Monday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the latest news tomorrow. Hope everyone has a great start of the week.
I'm live! 저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 없지 펜션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고